welcome to the MMA Road Show, episode number 249. My name is John Morgan. I am home in Las Vegas this week, and it's the first episode of 2020, the new year, the new decade, and I think the only way you celebrate something like that is you just bring in new blood. You got to freshen things up a little bit. So I'd like to introduce the newest member of our team here, Cold Coffee.
Hey, thanks for having me on the podcast. I've been hearing about this thing quite a bit. Glad to join you.
Oh, my God. It has been a while, man. I had to sit down and figure it out. I went back. Episode number 242 was the last time. So we're talking about, 7 weeks ago.
Wait, what number are we on? 249?
249.
Wow.
Almost two full months of no cold coffee. And then I got to bet,
they're all happy about it.
I haven't pulled up the numbers. I got to imagine the numbers are just down. I got to imagine people are just unsubscribing.
I'm sure my mom was just like, what the hell's going on? My sister and brother, they round out the three listeners I bring every week.
Well, listen, I've missed having you around. I try to do my best when I'm rolling solo, and hopefully it's not too annoying to hear my voice for that long straight. But it's nice to have you back in the mix. It's just been a crazy schedule, man, between kind of where we've been. You had some vacation. I had some travel. Yeah, well, I mean, we all had some travel lined up.
Super jealous of the Tokyo trip.
I know you were. We'll get into that in just a second. I missed you being over there, man. I thought about you quite a bit. We're actually in a little bit different area, so it wasn't the normal haunt. Normally I think we're in Shinjuku.
Yeah,
this time we were in Shibuya. So obviously it's still
not far.
Not too far. Still a cool area. But we kind of gotten our pattern down over there at at
I could literally walk around half completely obliterated and figure out the way home.
Not that ever happened.
Not
I'm
that
just saying
happens.
that if it was necessary, it could be.
If that does happen, I mean, we could probably figure it out.
Yeah, definitely missed you over there in Tokyo. Well, since we're talking about what a frosty beverage can do to you, let's just throw it out there right now. On this beautiful Thursday evening, we are enjoying a little bit of Latchkey Brewing. I've had it in the fridge for a little bit. Our man Anthony Beach brought it by, and unfortunately, just due to the schedule and due to me being sick, wasn't able to take care of it. But our good friends at Latchkey Brewing, 1795 Hancock Street down there in San Diego, California. So if you're in that San Diego area, make sure you stop by and try out some of the craft brews there.
Tell them you heard about them on the MMA Road Show.
Damn straight. Tell them you heard about it on the Road Show. Our man Anthony Beach is the head brewer there, man. He'll sit and talk some MMA with you. I know they put the fights on. They got a little food and stuff in there as well. So definitely check it out. It's at Latchkey Brewing on Instagram. And if you want to follow our boy at Anthony.mbeach, Anthony.m.beach. It's kind of like my email address. It's got a bunch of dots in there. Anthony.m.beach on Instagram. Like I said, the man that handles the brewing over there, and just an overall good guy. And starting out this evening with the Hatch IPA. It is a West Coast IPA. It says, this hop salad is crisp, dry, and easy drinking with nice citrus and floral notes.
Ooh, it is.
It also comes in strong at a good 7%, right?
Yeah. And this does not have the Hatch pepper in it like we misspoke the last time we had this.
Well, thanks for bringing up the my horrible description of it. I thought the Hatch had the Hatch chili in it. I was wrong. I knew we'd had it before, and then I tasted it and realized, no, sir.
No,
that is not what I was thinking of.
It is delicious, though. It is very, you can definitely taste the citrus and stuff. It's kind of light. Doesn't have that like a heavy,
super hoppy IPAs.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, man. I do not dig the super hoppy IPAs. I get it, man. That's a cool thing to say. Like, oh man, dude, you see the hop output,
bro?
Yeah, it's like, bro, come on, man. Like, it doesn't even taste good.
I get on my scooter and go home. My board is broke right now.
Yeah, no, this is just good drinking IPA. So I dig it. All right, listen. You touched on it, man. I was in Japan last week for Bellator 237, and man, I had not been there forever. I had to look this up. Now, the last UFC event there, it wasn't that long ago. It was September 2017, so we're only talking about 2 years. But I didn't go to that one. You actually went to that one. That was when Mizuta Hirota you went solo on that one. Yeah. Gokhan Saki was on the card. I remember you talked to him. Mizuta Hirota had the really bad weigh-in, that really became kind of the talk of that event, was how bad he looked on the scale. So you were there for that.
That's so funny. That brings up because I was literally the only English-speaking media on Fight Night. So their whole idea was that they were going to have the Japanese media would speak with the fighters, and then they bring them over to me. But at some point, the Japanese media stopped scrumming themselves. They would come up. They'd bring them to me. They'd all record mine, and then they would just leave.
That's
I'm
funny.
Like, don't you want your own?
It was a whole different situation. on here, because remember, it was Bellator and Ryzen kind of the co-promotion.
Yeah.
And the way Ryzen does it, I guess, is they bring the fighters. First of all, they bring the winners and the losers back, which is cool in a way. You know, like, hey man, just because you lost, you know, doesn't mean that you don't deserve the honor and respect. But man, if you're doing it for every fight on the card, man, it just makes for a really long night.
Yeah.
So they do that. I mean, I get it when it's like a champion that loses, or maybe it's a controversial fight result. You know, maybe a decision or something like that. I get that. So, but it's just kind of a cultural thing of having respect. But so it was
people interviewing them.
Yeah, so what they did is they would have like a stage at the front, and they'd have a chair there, and the fighter would just sit there, and then they would have like pass a microphone around, and mainly it was like a PR person that was asking questions, but then they would ask a couple.
They've been doing that in Brazil lately too.
So
they've kind of taken that aspect.
We told them, like, listen, man, just the difficulty of shooting this and all the translation, like, can we just – and they did, and the folks at Bellator were great. What they did was the English-speaking media would come in, and the fighter would scrum in front of us real quick, and then we would just move our cameras off to the side so the Japanese media could do their things. It was like 2 media sessions for things. So it was a little interesting. But listen, so I was doing the math on this. The last time I was there was September 2015, so Josh Barnett versus Roy Nelson. So I hadn't been there in 4 years. And, man, it was – I got to say, man, it was actually really cool, man. I had forgotten. I mean, of course, we all know, hey, the crowds are really quiet and all that. I mean, we all know that. But being there and experiencing it firsthand, it's such a reminder of how things are, you know, how much different it is, where it's, you know, the crowd, you can hear everything. You can hear the corners talking.
Yeah.
And it was cool,
and they
because
appreciate a lot of the different aspects. You know, like, they're not
cheering
going to be
for a guard pass.
They're not upset when somebody, you know, is on their back and, you know, say somebody's in side control and you happen to recover your guard, get him back into full guard. They're like, oh yeah, that was good on his part.
Yeah,
like,
they nice
understand,
applause, you know.
And that arena is fantastic.
It's cool. I mean, and listen, man, they had a big crowd there, man. I mean, I think they said it was like 15,000 or something. I think they
I was trying to make it out. The cameras were doing somewhat of a decent job, always showing the lower section. But you could tell there was a crowd there.
Right.
That's the shit that always interests me, especially when it goes to another country, how much that they are excited about it. We have so many shows here. A lot of people skip the prelims here in the States, but in a lot of other countries, you know, they realize, you know, hey, this event's only going to come maybe once this year, you know, to their country. And they're there right at the beginning, and I love it. And they've always been that way at every show that I've went to in Japan. The fans show up right at the beginning, and they're completely into it.
Soaking in the whole show.
They're completely into it. And it's not like, I mean, you have some that drank, but a lot of them are just there literally taking it in.
Right.
I mean, it's crazy. It
was phenomenal. Well, I tell you what, the big thing that stood out to me was that, listen, and they had the ceremonial weigh-ins at the hotel, the host hotel, so we didn't go all the way to Saitama for the ceremony, but the ballroom that it was in was packed, man. There was a lot of people there. So this crowd, a good crowd on 2 straight nights. You know, you had the Bellator Ryzen combo event, and then you had Ryzen 22 nights later. Good crowd on both nights. And you know what it really just kind of reminded me of? That, you know what? Japan is actually a viable MMA market, because, you know, the UFC didn't do great there. I mean, they came in with kind of a bang, and they had a big pay-per-view. But those fight nights by the end, you know, those last couple fight nights that you and I went to, I mean, you know, 7,000, 8,000, which isn't bad. It's not terrible, but I mean, when you're trying to develop a market and really make some inroads, and so to me, I had kind of developed the idea in my head that, well, I guess the Japan MMA market is just kind of over it. You know, it's a notoriously fad-driven society that kind of changes their interests. But I think there's still a real interest in it, man. And it was also kind of a historic night. And I, to be honest with you, I didn't think about it much going in. And to their credit, Bellator didn't try to sell it to us too hard, but it was actually Lorenz Larkin and Michael Chandler, you know, after their victories, that were talking to us, and they were like, how cool is this, man? You know, you've got these 2 organizations working together, you know, a legitimate co-promotion, and that's true, man. It was kind of a historic night, you know, to have 2 organizations kind of, I guess you have to swallow your pride a little bit, right? I mean, it's gotta be some give and take, you know, in a relationship. It's not all my event. It's not all your event. You know, we can't pretend that one of us is more important than the other. We got to work together. And I will say, you know, it didn't always run 100% smoothly. I mean, you got 2 companies based, you know, across the Pacific Ocean, and they've got their own way of doing things. And both those companies, I mean, Ryzen is a very, very small staff. Bellator is a little bit bigger, but not a lot. I mean, they run pretty lean, man. They're trying, which is good. I mean, they're trying to be profitable. They're not wasting money. But those two companies know how they like to do things. They know how they make things work. And so, when you've got to kind of invite somebody else into your house and let them run a little bit of it, it got a little bit confusing at times. But overall, man, I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, do I believe that the UFC is ever going to co-promote with anybody? Absolutely not. The UFC is never going to co-promote with anybody. But you know what, man? These other organizations, and I mean, I'd love to see what CFFC versus Cage Warriors, or Titan FC versus Island Fights or whatever, just stuff like that. I mean, especially the stuff that's already all on Fight Pass, so you're not having to argue about broadcast restrictions, because that ended up being an issue. If I don't know if a lot of people were trying to watch the fights, but the Ryzen fights the night of Bellator 237 didn't get streamed outside of Japan.
Yeah, that was weird.
It was weird, and it all came down to they thought they could just kind of show them wherever, and it was like, hey, no, like we actually, there's companies that pay for your broadcast rights.
We pay for those rights.
Just because you're doing an event with Bellator, it doesn't mean all of a sudden you can just do whatever you want with your fights. We pay for that. So it ended up becoming a bit of an issue. But listen, man, I thought it was so cool to see these companies working together. And I'm excluding the UFC because I get it. The UFC is never going to co-promote with anybody. That's just the reality of the situation. It's always been that way, and as far as I can see in the foreseeable future, it'll always be that way. But, man, these other brands work together. I think, man, it makes for some interesting matchups, right? It makes for some fun stuff that you weren't expecting.
Yeah, and I think if they could make it work, I mean, we've seen it happen in boxing, and I've seen it really fall apart in boxing where you have multiple promoters try to run a show, and it turns out to be very half-assed events. A media day or a press conference and all this other shit just goes, and it just somehow forms into a giant, massive just chaos. And one thing that I will credit the UFC, they run a super tight ship, and I always tell people, I'll go work like a boxing event or something that's by somebody that's maybe not as polished as them, and you just long for how orderly and how finely run things are in the UFC. It's not perfect,
right?
But it just seems to work well. So the fact that this did happen, and the event seemed to go off well, and you didn't hear any big major hangups. You got to give kudos to these two organizations for doing it, and I love the relationship that they've sort of been fostering between changing matchups here. I'm gonna have my champ go fight your champ, and then your champ come fights our champ. It's creating these fights that are just incredible. But yeah, I was totally bummed that we couldn't watch some of the prelims. I was sitting here, I was like, this can't be right? I'm looking on our site, trying to find the fights. I'm like, what do you mean I can't watch? And I can't find this anywhere. But it happens. But the fact that it did work, it's great. And probably if a lot of smaller organizations did put together, I mean, especially if they could pool their money together to help put on one of these things and then let the people that know what they're doing do the things they do to make the event run smooth, I bet we would probably see a lot more really, really cool events.
I think so. Like I said, it's just fun when it's fresh matchups that you never even considered. You know what I mean? It makes it fun. So I dug it, man. I really did. And I'll tell you what, it was a very cool experience, a unique one for me. The main event, of course, was Fedor Emelianenko versus Quentin Rampage Jackson. Now, we were at Saitama Super Arena. Of course, you got the big in-stage walkout, which is so cool. And I never got to go to a Pride event back in the day.
Yeah,
and I went
that would have been cool, I imagine.
It would have been cool. And I got to go to a handful of the Saitama shows for the UFC. I always said, like, Vanderlei and Brian Stan, like, that was an epic moment, man. I mean, for Vanderlei to be in there and have that kind of fight in Saitama was cool, but it was still very much a UFC product, right? This one, they brought in Lenny Hart as well to do the announcing, so it felt like Pride, which was cool because I didn't know that was happening. Which should have made sense because she does Rising, but I just didn't even think twice about it. So they brought it in.
Rising.
It was so cool, man. And so here's a really crazy part. So, I was on a solo mission over there. So as you know, of course, if you're on solo mission, that means you're working in the back of the house. You're getting those winter interviews and getting that video up. But I did tell him, like, hey, man, I do want to go out there for the main event. I want to soak it in. That's nice as a videographer. Bellator actually allows the videographers to sneak out into the arena. I know you've mentioned that before, that you enjoy it because you can actually take a quick little break and go watch it. So, but in Saitama, the folks at Ryzen were the ones that were helping set up everything. And I guess in the Japanese media, it's not traditional to have a press row type situation. So they didn't really have a press row. So the alternative they came up with on the fly was, let's just put a table right here, like up against the cage. So like me and
Did they not have photogs or anything in that?
they did, but it was basically like a photog position, but in like another side of the cage. Of course, Bellator has that round cage too, so there's more spaces, and so yeah, we literally just sat right there. Myself and Casey from MMA Fighting, Casey Lyden, the videographer, we went out there for the main event, and I gotta say, I've sat that close before, of course, when I'm doing commentary.
Yeah.
But when I'm doing commentary for events, I've got a headset on, so I'm really hearing the voice. That was the first time I had ever sat that close to the cage and not had a headset on, and I gotta say, man, soaking it in, the experience of Rampage Jackson and Fedor Emelianenko getting the Lenny Hart introduction into Saitama, and then coming in there, and man, I mean, every movement of their foot on the canvas, every breath they took. There were a couple times where I heard Fedor like throw a couple shots and then kind of clear. I mean, you could hear that, like clearing his throat a little bit. It was so crazy,
That's
man.
cool.
It was a unique experience. I mean, out of all the fights that I've covered and of all the events that I've been to, that was actually unique, especially to be in that venue and with those fighters. And I will say, the fight did not live up to the hype, the expectations. I mean, if we're being honest, it was disappointing. But I don't want to take away from Fedor, because I thought Fedor looked good.
Looked completely like I expected him to
I
look.
thought he looked good, man.
Yeah.
I mean, Rampage, it was clear the 265 was not the right move for him. I do think the punch that landed clean. I mean, again, we were cage side, and I could hear it, and it sounded like it hit him pretty good.
And immediately
he had
drew blood
taken
too when he raised up. I mean, but granted, he hit the ground hard too, so I'm not sure. Part of that could have been when he face planted, but it looked like that was a solid hit. And and people have said that. Even I'm trying to think of some of the last times Fedor's fought and he's landed. Guys are just like, I mean, shit. You could look at Frank Mir. People are just like, dude, Fedor hits incredibly hard still. Like, even though he is aged and he's gone along, his power is still there, and especially early on in a fight.
Oh, it was so impressive to watch him pick his punches. You know what I mean? Like, because if you want to give Rampage credit for anything, he was covering up pretty well.
Yeah.
He just wasn't coming back with any counters. You know what I mean? But he was covering up pretty well. But the punches and Fedor realizing, okay, hold on, I'm going to throw 4, 5, 6 punches. Okay, now let me back up because I'm not trying to gas myself out here. Let me reset and pick my shots. Threw that big kick to the body. I mean, we don't think about him throwing a lot of big kicks, but big kick to the body. But
and he realized that, Rampage wasn't throwing anything back. I mean, he was sort of covering up, and then he when he started to eat a couple times, he threw a couple haymakers in there. But that was it.
I think after about 60 seconds, Fedor realized, like, this dude is not even going to throw back.
He's not even trying to hit me. He's not even trying, And then he was like, okay, I can pick and choose. And then when he was getting him up against the cage, even though Rampage was covering up, he was landing. He was getting some of them uppercuts, just kind of getting up in there, and they were tagging him.
Yeah, they were.
I mean, kudos to Rampage. He ate quite a bit of shots, and then it just got to the point where the shot that took him down was just perfectly placed, and it was clean, and it was still early on, and it was vintage Fedor, man. It was Fedor that still had a hell of a lot of power, and it's crazy because we always hear this stuff about Fedor. We know he's getting near the end of his career, but every time you have seen glimpses of training footage and all the stuff that's going on, he's still training at a very high level. I mean, his hands are still extremely powerful, and they're still very, very quick, and his boxing and his striking is still at an incredibly high level.
I agree.
I mean, granted, his cardio and all that other stuff isn't there, but for a guy that's been doing it as long and has fought as many times, it is still probably, I don't know, 80-90% of probably what it was, at least at the initial parts of the fight.
I was impressed. Yeah, at least early on, especially. I was impressed. I mean, we're saying 2 more fights. Sign me up. I mean, I love the Josh Barnett fight. I mean, that's another big name. Again, I mean, this was a fight that it didn't necessarily mean anything in terms of rankings or whatever, but it's just cool to see names. Like,
especially those names there. I mean, Rampage always in Japan is a fun moment because that it's a fight that he's actually excited about.
Yep.
And I think there are probably a lot of people out there that don't think that he did what he needed to do for this, but I wouldn't ever say that the fight didn't mean something for him.
Oh, it definitely did.
Like he appreciates and he loves fighting for the Japanese people, and he loves going over there. So to think that he was just only trying to just half-ass it and go there not expecting to do some damage, I wouldn't say that.
Rampage was, and this was actually cool to see as well, because again, the performance was disappointing. There's no question about it. But he was mobbed in the hotel lobby afterwards, man. The Japanese
fucking love
fans
him,
were
dude.
still, it was so cool. And he even turned to me at one point and he's like, man, you see why I love fighting over here so much?
Yep.
And they did. They were
They
lined
absolutely
up,
adore
man.
him over there. And I mean, how can you not want to go fight over there, even if maybe you know that you're not 100%, but you know, like, you're going to go fight at a place that regardless of how you perform, they are absolutely going to love you for the fact that you were man enough or woman enough to go in there and fight.
Right.
And so, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I think the Japanese fan and people that treat fights like they do are the fighters' favorites. They will go
Absolutely.
there any point. They will ride that shitty, super long flight over there to fight there because they realize that the crowd is completely into what they are doing and they completely respect it, you
Yep.
know. So good on him. I'm glad he got that.
I will say this though, Coker afterwards, and Coker, of course, Scott Coker is never going to badmouth a fighter,
Yeah.
But somebody asked him about, what's next for Rampage, and Coker's answer was, well, we'll have to see. I don't even know if he wants to fight anymore, and that to me was Coker showing a little bit of frustration. I think he was probably a little bit frustrated with Rampage coming in at 265 and maybe not, you know what I mean? Coker has a lot of respect, man, but just the way he said that, I don't even know if he wants to fight anymore.
Yeah.
It kind of got me like, that's the closest I think Scott Coker will ever go
Yeah.
to saying like, bro, I don't know if I want to promote more like that. But
Yeah.
this was before Rampage had come out and self-admitted, I didn't look good in there.
Yeah.
I felt like a hippopotamus, I think is what he said. Made it clear that, he's not going to do heavyweight anymore, which I agree with.
Yeah.
You know what? If he can get down to 205 again, maybe there's still some entertaining matchups.
And you want him to have these entertaining matches because I think with lesser competition at heavyweight, Rampage would be fine. But you don't want Rampage doesn't deserve to get a shitty no-name fighter just so he can have
Right.
a fight where he looks.
There are
good.
heavyweights he could beat.
There are heavyweights he could beat, but you want him to fight these sort of ones because I mean I love Rampage to death, but he doesn't have that many fights left in him as well,
No,
I
it's
mean
true.
you don't want him to go the route of this old cat that's just fighting a bunch of just soup cans just so he can keep fighting
Yep.
well into his 50s or something, and it's funny because somebody it brought up there was the video of some fans in Japan that lined up for Rampage to smack him. And it
I
completely
saw that video, and it was the hotel lobby, and he was wearing – it was that night because I saw the clothes he had on.
Yeah.
I wish I could have seen that in person because that was crazy.
Yeah. I mean, and it brought back memories. And I know I've said it on earlier episodes of this, but when the very first event I worked, and I want to say it was UFC 130 or something like that.
Oh, that's right. I had forgotten about this.
Rampage was one of the fighters.
Yep.
And so I was the very first event, so I was a new employee, and I remember Brad Hubbard, who was my boss at the time, had taken a piece of tape and stuck it on my chest and had wrote "new guy" on it and had sent me back into the back. We were doing post-fight interviews, and I was going back in there with Lorenzo, good old Zoe, and he was going to have us interview Rampage. We were interviewing other guys as well, but we went in there to go interview Rampage, and at the time, they were like, all right, one of you guys just shoot it and the other guy interviews. And Zoe's like, well, I'll shoot. You can interview. And I'm like, fuck, this is my first event. All right, like, whatever. Let's do this.
Don't do the fire right there, boy.
So we get in there, we get in the back, and Rampage is kind of looking at us, and he looks over at Zoe. He's like, I know you. He's like, yeah, man, I'm Zoe. I've done you before. I've interviewed you before. And he looks over at me. I'm like, yeah. And he looks down at the tape on my shirt, and I say, yeah, I'm the new guy. I'm here to interview you. And he just kind of sizes me up, looks up and down, he just kind of looks at me without even flinching, and he just hauls off and slaps me.
Oh, my God.
And I remember thinking, like, what the fuck is going on here? And I had no idea. Afterwards I had found out that that's, like, was Rampage's thing. He would either, like, leg kick people he didn't know or smack them and other. But I remember at the time it happened, I was just like, oh, shit, okay. All right, well, let's do this interview.
That's
and I remember
crazy,
thinking,
man.
like, what the fuck is going on? And I was like, I went back to the Brad and them afterwards. I was like, dude, we went to interview Rampage, and he fucking slapped me. And they're like, oh, yeah, that's Rampage. I was like, did you fucking know he was going to do that?
I wonder
do
you know if the camera was rolling?
I have no idea.
Oh, that'd be so amazing.
I wonder if it was. I mean, but at the time,
Go
I
find
don't
that
even
footage
know
on a hard drive somewhere.
At the time, I don't even know if we backed up all the shit because we didn't. The UFC didn't have the dam and all the other
Yeah, right now they have a
fancy
massive server that just stores everything.
shit that they have now. Oh man, but dude, it was fucking crazy. And when I saw that thing, it made me think about how people have adored Rampage, but also there is going to be a point. And I'd never like to try to say, that the dude's retiring or whatever, but sooner rather than later, unfortunately, it will be the last time that we see these guys fight. And as much as I know that he could fight more at heavyweight, if it means him fighting better and fighting again and to go back at light heavyweight, but maybe that'll keep him going. I just want it to still stay fun fights for him, fun fights for us. I don't want to see him just fighting the number 30 in the division just to keep getting fights because at that point it's like
some
I'll still
3-1 guy.
Yeah, I mean, like, you still love Rampage, but at some point you want the memories of how you remember somebody to be the lasting parts.
Sure.
But is that selfish? For me as a spectator to want my memories to be a certain way instead of, sorry, sir, I know you want to make a living and make more stuff, but no, I want my memories of you to be this.
It's a little selfish, I guess, when you put it like that.
If
they're physically able to compete,
who am I to make them not work?
Yeah.
It'd be like the same person like, oh, dude, remember when you used to carry all your gear on your back and you would go shoot 15 interviews a day, but now you're getting old and tired, you only like to do 5 interviews? Should I take you out back and shoot you
Yes,
now?
I do. But I will do really good for those 5 interviews,
Right?
I assure you.
No,
it'll be interesting to see what is next. I hope that, that he will go down to 205. I think that will probably pique Scott Coker's interest a little bit to say, hey, let's keep doing some work. I did want to say about Fedor as well. It was interesting because obviously in cage it kind of sounded like he was retiring. The translator,
it did.
The translator was hilarious.
It was so unceremoniously too. I was just like, so he's not getting emotional or anything.
I had lunch just randomly with the translator the day before. Like, I just walked into like this little cafe across the street from the hotel, and he was there. And you know how it is. Like, we just like, it's a little tiny cafe, and we were like tables next to each other. So they're talking about fights, and so next thing you know, we're talking about fights. So we ended up like just chilling, talking about MMA, talking about Russia, talking about whatever for like an hour.
Did you throw back some vodkas?
We didn't because it was the middle of the afternoon, but it would have been nice. But no, he's a super nice guy, man. Really nice guy.
What happened to his normal translator?
That's a good question because I didn't see. She wasn't there.
She wasn't there for the event.
I didn't see her anywhere at all the whole week.
Interesting.
I didn't see her the whole week. So anyway, so I felt kind of bad for him when that whole thing came. But he was hilarious. He came backstage, and I was like, there's a little bit of confusion over what was said in the cage.
Like, my bad.
It was great. He's like, that's all on me, man. That's all on me. But
like, bro, you literally almost just retired him out there, right? You know what you did, right?
Funny, man. He did. He was like, it was my fault. But
reporters everywhere just crashing their stories, deleting their stories.
So here's what's interesting is that Fedor said he wanted to fight one more in the U.S. And then one more time in Russia and call it a career. Now, when we talked to Scott Coker in English, I asked him kind of what he saw the schedule being. He really didn't say. He's like, 2 more times, but we'll end in Russia. So I assumed the middle would be in the U.S. as well. When he was speaking to the Japanese media, he actually, and I wasn't rolling tape on it, but I heard it because I was still in the media room and I wrote it down. But he actually mentioned a late summer fight in Europe or the Middle East, and then 2021 in Moscow. So we might not get to see Fedor back in the United States again, which I think would be a damn shame.
Oh, but he was just saying 2 fights left. One would be in the Middle East and one would be in Russia.
Yeah, he said Europe or the Middle East and then early 2021 in Moscow. So at least the way Coker mentioned it to the Japanese media, it wouldn't include another fight in the United States. So that was kind of I thought that was a little interesting and a little maybe disappointing.
I mean, where the hell else would you put it in the Middle East or wherever that you would get a bigger?
I would assume they'd go to Chicago. They always like to do Chicago with Fedor because there's a big Russian population there. I thought that's what they'd want to do.
Even
maybe
New York.
Yeah, maybe New
York makes much more sense in the terms of like big U.S. ones as opposed to, I don't know. I mean, unless they're going to try to break into a market and they need a
That'd
name
be a
like
hell of a
Fedor.
hell of a way to roll into a market, right?
Like if they were gonna we're gonna go to the Czech Republic or something, and we're gonna do it in Prague, Bellator in Prague, and we're gonna bring Fedor.
See maybe like the Netherlands or something. I mean, the Netherlands they have a good broadcast deal, I think, in the Netherlands, and obviously that's always been a I mean,
That would be
there were
a
a
huge
lot
one,
of.
especially if they're like, well, all right, yeah, we're gonna sign this deal with you, but you can't give a shit. Like don't bring blah blah blah. Where Fedor, because they know that
I mean,
the Russian media and people would come to it.
would London make sense?
Um,
I mean,
yeah,
just because it's a big media market,
it's a
right?
huge media market, and I think there's huge Russian media outlets there. I could see that. It certainly is not. Well, I mean, I could see where if they still did. Yeah, I mean, he is like a trump card. If you are literally going to break into a new market,
That's a hell of a name to walk in
it's
with.
about the biggest name that they have. I
Yep.
mean, who else does Bellator have that's a bigger draw immediately right now?
That's it.
I mean, not talking about like here, in the States, we know, oh, well, the best fighter is going to be this guy or this guy or this guy. But when it comes to pure name value of who they have, like
Global
Fedor's,
recognition.
he's got to be the top 2 or 3 fighters, and
I agree.
I can't really think who I would put bigger than what Fedor does for them. So I could see where if somebody was like, all right, yeah, we got to make a big splash in a country, I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to do like a fucking Saudi Arabia or some
You might be talking there.
some big card like that where they're like, okay, we're going to go to Abu Dhabi or Saudi Arabia, and we need something like that, and then just have.
I mean, DAZN did the last event in Saudi Arabia, right? Or was or was it on pay-per-view? I can't remember.
I can't remember.
Yeah, but I
It might
would
have been
agree.
a zone fight.
Saudi Arabia money, I could definitely see some Saudi Arabia money
I
coming
mean,
in.
it would be huge. So I mean, makes sense, and especially if he's trying to get a couple last big paydays, something like that would be much bigger because I can guarantee they could work something out differently there than just doing a big show in MSG
Yep.
or New York. But if they were going to do it in the States, it makes sense, like you said, Chicago or like
I
New
just
York.
assumed that to me
Yeah.
was so interesting to note. So anyway, if you were thinking as an American fan, hey, maybe I'll get in on this, Fedor retirement tour. Maybe I'll watch him one more time. I don't know. You might be out of luck.
Better order that DAZN.
Better order that DAZN, man. Listen, just real quickly, the rest of that card. I mean, Michael Chandler. By the way,
That was an awesome
Michael
fight.
Chandler got a really good reception out there, man. The fans were all over him. I think it's
Yeah.
probably because, I mean, obviously he's incredibly successful and he looks like a damn, action hero or whatever.
Yeah.
So but man, he got really good reception by the fans.
But also
And-
his fighting style. I mean, like especially
it's
trying to
fun,
fight
man.
through the ankle injury that he had. Like, I mean, it's funny. I'm a big anime fan. You know this, and I don't know if anyone else knows it. But like, if you ever watch anime and you ever watch any of these
so
stories,
Michael Page got you all excited. You were just
oh,
like,
dude, I was so hyped. I was so hyped. But if you watch these guys, and especially these characters that are portrayed a lot of times in these anime, they're ones that have been beaten down and are on their last breath, but they never give up and they always fight through it. He has literally epitomized that in real deal fights. If he could have, he would have kept fighting in that fight, and he was unable to walk. I think if anybody watched some of his fights, it's hard to not be a fan of his heart. So I could definitely see, and he's a fucking winner. You
Yeah.
know, I mean,
he says all the right things.
says
man.
all
He's
the right
such
things.
a professional.
yeah, he's legit, and that was a fucking great fight, dude.
It really was, man.
He's fucking impressive.
He's lethal, and I got to say, man, Sydney Outlaw, a guy that has kind of been flying under the radar
Yeah.
for a long time. Man, Sydney, I like Sydney a lot, man. I saw him the next day, and he was not like okay with just saying, I came in on short notice, I
Yeah.
did my best. He was like,
Yeah.
man, I know I can do better.
Yeah.
I'm
He's a
disappointed.
guy to keep an eye on for sure. I mean, like it's funny that you can say that somebody has impressed you even in a loss, but like you said, coming in there short notice. But in watching some of his recent stuff, I mean, he's a tough dude, man.
Yeah, he is.
He's definitely a guy to keep an eye on. So don't
He's
let
got a decent record, and he's fought
Yeah.
some decent names.
yeah. So don't let the fact of how that one ended sway you on the fact of whether he's a talented fighter or not, because he is a very, very talented fighter, very dangerous, and Chandler knew that as well. That it
He had
could
a lot of respect
easily,
for him.
it could have easily went the other way if if a punch landed the other way. So
He had a lot of respect for him. MVP Michael Venom Page just absolutely destroyed Shinso Enzai. And I like Shinso a lot, but I got to be honest, when they announced this matchup, I was like, this is not going to be pretty at all. And MVP went out there and executed. But I would say, man, I mean, this was a late addition to the card. They only added MVP after Benson Henderson fell off. I love the fact that he fought out there in Japan. I thought this was just a perfect place for him to fight with his showmanship and his style. As you said, the anime, man, he came in there with the anime walk-in and just looked phenomenal. And I will say, man, having been around MVP a lot in his career, it was a cool fight week because, this was not about some kind of rivalry or about some kind of grudge match, whatever. Like, he was literally like a fanboy walking around Japan. He was just like, this place is amazing. So he was so relaxed and so at ease where I don't feel like that's always the case in his fights. I feel like sometimes there's so much pressure on him to be the guy marketing and to be the guy selling. And it didn't happen this time around, so I enjoyed it.
I wish I could say the Akatsuki, I think is how that the outfit. It's a rogue band of like ninjas from the Naruto series.
Oh,
they're like
the
they're
red
like
outfit.
they're super powerful, and they were enemies of Naruto. And so, like, when I saw him come out, I was like, "Oh shit!" Like, the Japanese fans are gonna fucking totally dig it. But
that
like,
is way more knowledge than I had. That's for sure.
but it's literally like the guys that wear those. They're bad guys, but they're like super powerful, like bad guys.
Right.
But some of them have redeeming qualities, if you will, and have redeeming moments. Yeah, but not to get all like anime Naruto'd out. But dude, when he had that outfit, I was like, dude, that is incredible. I was a little jelly though. Even though I need to go back and double check his headgear, make sure that the headgear was legit. I'm sure it was, because you don't get the whole outfit and then put the wrong headgear.
Oh, that would be a horrible
because all the
mistake.
headbands, the different band of ninjas that they are. Like if he went out there and had like the hidden leaf or like Naruto's ninja
Right.
on with that outfit,
That would be like a horrible mistake.
it would be huge, and the people that are like fans would be like, "Dude, you fucked up the outfit. You put Naruto's headband on, but then
That's
you put
so
his arch
great.
enemies." So I almost want to go back and look at
That's
it.
like
But
Star Wars dorks that are like tearing apart like the new movies and stuff. Like, you would never be in that.
like the Mandalorian's medal, of course, is not that. It's this, you know. But I want to go back and I'll have to look at the pictures just to double check. But dude, kudos on his outfit. But I feel like almost like we're gonna have to have the anime guys battle it out, because only one of you really is gonna pull it off. And I feel like he's done the whole. What do you call it? The
So are you saying MVP versus Adesanya?
just for who has the rights to do the anime shit. There can be only one. There can be only one. Because what's the one with the balls that you throw? No, he captured the Pokemon.
Pokemon.
Remember, he would go out there and he used to roll the Pokemon ball and stuff like that. That's all like cutes and funsy or whatever. But like when what's his face goes out there, Adesanya goes out there. He's literally summoning shit with his hand gestures. That's stuff
Right,
from
the famous, even the famous picture of the hand behind the back, right? That was inspired by, I believe you said it was Rock Lee,
which is a Naruto character.
Right.
So the same, they're pulling from the same world, you know. But he goes out there and he's doing this, where I can almost see where like Adesanya might be like,
we know it's never going to happen because we just said the UFC's never going to co-promote. But I'm co-signing. Like, that would be pretty awesome, because not only when you're talking about their stylistic matchups. I mean, their stylistic now. Adesanya is, I wouldn't say much bigger. He's definitely bigger, but I don't think he's like huge. Like, I don't think they would look.
He's bigger, but that Page is kind of deceivingly big. He's like
He
tall and sort of
That's what I'm
stretched
saying,
out.
yeah.
He's like sort of lanky.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think it would look
Adesanya fills
horrible.
out, I think, more.
I don't think it would look horrible, but yeah, but when you think about the way their styles match up,
It would literally
versus the
be an
fact that they
anime
would,
fight taking place
Yeah, but an
live.
anime fight.
It would be an anime fight taking place live. We'd have to make sure that they both put their ninja stars and their other shit away before the fight. But every time I see him going, I'm almost like, okay, only one of you can use this fucking gimmick. One of them's
Right.
gonna have to call out the other and be like, "Bitch, pick it. You were fucking Pokemon a little bit. Now you're trying to
Which one
jump.
are you?
Now you're trying to jump into Naruto. I already claimed it, bitch. Did you see my walk-in? Did you see my walk-in?
He's like, I had a knife in my mouth and I ran down the stairs.
That's the
He's like,
Naruto
I was
run.
trying not to fall over.
That's
It's
the
like, it was,
ninja run.
it
It's
was
like-
a pretty steep incline, by the way. He's like running down it.
It is this. It is like one of the funniest things now when you see people do that, because when you think about it, it doesn't
That's like those
seem to
dorks
make
in
any
Area
sense.
51. They were like,
we
what if
watch-
we just
we
Naruto
wa-
run? Like,
we
they
watch
don't do this.
sprinters. Have you ever seen a sprinter try to run with his arms behind them? You know, it doesn't make you faster. You know, you need to crank that to generate some speed, I guess. or-
Surely there must be a clip of Usain Bolt or something. Just do like,
How fucking awesome would that be? Like, oh, that really does work. I barely noticed him. But yeah, no. When I saw that, I was like, uh-oh, somebody's treading on somebody else's gimmick.
now I'm getting excited about that. That's funny. A fight that'll never
But I
ever
love it
happen.
though. I mean, the anime fan of me loves it. So I mean, if more people could do it. If you do it well, but I loved his outfit. I give him kudos, because I bet he spent a decent dime on that thing, because it looked legit.
Yeah.
You know, it didn't look like it was just straight from the
I think
Walmart
he ended up telling.
shelves
No.
or
I think he
something.
ended up telling the Japanese media also that, I think, because they asked him about it.
Yeah.
I believe he said he bought it at like a Comic-Con
Okay.
like he didn't buy it in London or
Yeah.
in Tokyo. Like he bought it like a Comic-Con. He had it and he was like saving it and he was like,
yeah.
oh, this is the perfect.
It looked
night.
awesome. It looked incredible. So I mean, he dropped some clams on that one for sure.
That's fun.
So I give him some kudos. But yeah, the geek in me, the fucking anime fan in me, just loved it. I saw it and I immediately just fucking loved it. It made me want to go back and watch.
All
some
you gotta
bunch
do
of
is get
episodes
cold
of it.
coffee like 7 weeks away, then you bring it back and you start finding out secrets, man. You start finding out.
me some anime.
Last thing I want to say real quick was Lorenz Larkin, man. He looked phenomenal against
He
Keita
looked really
Nakamura,
good.
but backstage he was hilarious. And Lorenz sometimes I think doesn't necessarily love doing media, but he had a great thing. And I was like, listen, a lot of people because you guys, because he ended up coming back to us after MVP fought, and I'm like, listen, man, a lot of people are saying like, based on the way you guys both look tonight, man, wouldn't that be a phenomenal fight? And he was like, listen, man. He's like, I haven't told a lot of people this, but I'm just going to bring it out. Like, he's like, I don't think anybody knows this, but might as well say it tonight. He's like, we're related, and we've agreed that we're not going to fight. And
Who's this?
like Lorenz Larkin said him and MVP are related, and they're not going to fight
No shit.
on camera. And I was like,
So how are they? Did they say how they're related?
well, they're not.
Oh,
So here's the deal but he kept it up for a
it's
while.
my bro. It's
He
my
kept
bro.
it up. I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, man, we're related. And in my head, I'm like, oh, hold on, like I watch a
Start thinking
lot.
about where they're from.
Well, I watch a lot of fights and read a lot of content, and I'm
Yeah.
like, have I missed this somewhere? Like,
How did I
I was
miss
like, how
this?
could this possibly be? And I'm like, seriously? And he's like, yeah, man, seriously. He's like, I know people would be excited about it. He's like, but we're related, man, and we're just not gonna fight. And I was like, what? It just kept like.
Did you finally just say bullshit? I call
No,
bullshit.
he kept it up for a good, I don't know, maybe 30 seconds or whatever, but it felt like quite a few where I was
Yeah.
like, huh? What? And he just kept it up, and finally he's like, nah, I'm just bullshit.
Nah, I'm
He's
just
like,
kidding.
we're not. He's like, but he did say that he does like MVP a lot, and he's like, it's not a fight that I'm actively seeking.
Yeah.
He's like, I like the dude's vibe. I think he's cool as hell,
Yeah.
and I don't necessarily want to fight him, but
And I respect that. I mean, I think a lot of us, again, it goes back to being selfish. We're like, I love this fight. I think these fighters would be great. But it makes sense that, over time, a lot of these guys, their peers, watching each other fight, will probably come to this point where you're like, I just like the dude. I just don't have the inkling to want to fight him. I mean, we have the ones out there that
like if there's no other fight on the table that makes sense, okay, then maybe we'll
Then
do it.
maybe we'll
But
do
why
it,
do we
but-
gotta do it right now?
yeah, there's plenty of other people I can fight. Let this guy go up his way. Let me do my thing. And if we meet, for a title down the line, okay,
Right.
yeah, let's do it or something. But that's pretty cool though.
It was
That's
funny.
pretty
He
cool.
tried to side. And
I like
said,
Lorenz, man.
because like
He
I
looks
said,
good.
sometimes I feel like Lorenz gets annoyed by having to talk to us, and so for him to kind of like have jokes, I
Yeah.
thought it made me laugh a little bit. It was good. So anyway, a couple other just quick notes from Bellator. Another thing that Scott Coker said to the Japanese media and didn't say to us, but obviously we were there eavesdropping. He basically made it clear. I mean, I think a lot of people think that there's going to be some changes in store for Bellator broadcast-wise in 2020, and it makes some sense, man. Like, no disrespect to Paramount, but it just doesn't make sense for them to be on, man. I mean, there's no other
Yeah.
sports on it whatsoever. They don't have, like, great lead-ins. They don't have shoulder pro. It's just a weird spot for them to be in. And, they're working on this merger right now, and I think the leading idea is that maybe there would be some stuff on Showtime and maybe some stuff on, like, the CBS Sports Network, which obviously they own. Which I think all that could be I think it could be good.
Yeah.
I think it could be good.
It's funny because you do mention that. I wish I paid better attention, but when I flipped on Paramount on my Roku to watch that fight, there was something completely random on. It might even been a movie.
It's like drama.
It could have been like fucking Top Gun or something. It wasn't, but it might as well have been like Top Gun on before it. It might have came on after it. Who knows? Because Top Gun's on my head for some fucking reason. I feel like it popped on.
Because you're ready to see the new Top Gun.
I saw the trailer and I'm fucking confused. I don't know what the hell's going on in there. I'm like, am I excited? I like it when I hear the music build up, but I'm probably more excited. People hate me out. I'm probably more excited to see like Frozen 2 or Jumanji than Top Gun. I do want to see some motherfucking Star Wars. We almost went last night.
This
but
hatch is hitting hard right now. Man. The Latchkey Brewing is.
Have you
is
ever
getting
watched Frozen?
I have a 7-year-old kid. Of course,
But,
I see
I'm
Frozen.
excited for Frozen too. I think that'd be good. It's funny because for the longest time, old Age and H didn't want to watch Frozen. And I would always be like, dude, you need to watch Frozen. You need to watch Frozen. And she'd always be like, why do you always keep trying to push that damn movie down my throat? And one day,
She's like, won't you
around the
just
holidays,
let it go?
I was like, let it go,
Let
bitch.
it
Let's watch
go.
the movie. But then we watched it, and she was like, that was incredible. I can't wait to watch the new one. And I was like, good, thank God, because I kind of want to see the new one too. So,
Wow.
but yeah, what's funny, because I don't even think Top Gun's playing at the movie theater over here. Now half the time.
Is it out already?
I just don't think, I think it's maybe in select theaters, or I don't know how well it did. Or maybe it's not out. I don't know.
think so. I thought it was out like next year or something. I thought that was
Maybe
just like the
they got
advanced teaser.
because watching that fucking trailer, I'm like, dude, you need to go back and refilm some shit because that don't look exciting at all. Come back and train, Maverick.
Bro,
It's just not the same without.
Do you just want to
Goose.
hand over your man card right now, or should I grab it when I'm leaving tonight? Once
Bitch,
we
let
get
it go,
done?
man. Let it go.
Oh man! All right, listen. Should say real quick, if you like what you're hearing, do us a favor. Log into wherever you listen to podcasts, including on Apple. It would just be called Podcasts. Log into there and leave us some feedback. We would really appreciate that. Certainly, we hope that you're already subscribed. But if you can take a moment to leave us some feedback, that helps. We are, by the way, a 5-star show.
Whoa.
On podcasts, on Apple Podcasts. So we'd appreciate any more 5-star reviews that you can leave. And if you want to take it to the next level, patreon.com/the MMA Road Show. If you want to throw us a couple bucks a month to help us pay for the equipment that we use.
With the beer? Pay for the beer?
And the beer, let's just be honest.
Well, beer helps. But also, it does help to run the website and all that other kind of
Yes,
stuff.
we have server costs and hosting and all the
we do.
equipment that we use and all that. So
get that wallet out. If you're out and about, I want you to Naruto Ninja run your ass home. Get that wallet out and throw some money at the site. But make sure when you run with your hands behind you, you do not have your wallet in your hand at the time because you'll probably drop it because it's a completely fucking awkward run.
Naruto, run your ass.
Naruto, run your ass home.
Oh, it's so great. All right, listen, the other I didn't stay, by the way, I didn't
Shadow clones. You wouldn't know anything about no shadow clones.
Totally lost right now. I did not stay for Ryzen 20, which on the one hand, I kind of wish I would have because I've never been to a Ryzen event and seeing it, and it was a phenomenal card that ended up being very entertaining. I think I would have really enjoyed it, but I will say, in order to go cover Bellator 237, I had to leave my family on Christmas Day, which... so to have come home after New Year's as well, not celebrated either one of those with them would have been tough. So I am a big supporter of the Ryzen product, though, man. I think they do a great job. It's tough to watch, I know, from the United States. It's in the middle of the night or whatever, but they had a great
tough when
card.
they don't broadcast it before the other.
Well, that does make it a little tough. PFL 2019 Championship went down on New Year's Eve as well. I did want to talk to you about that real quick. I will say, I've been a fan of the PFL product. I remain a fan of the PFL product. I think it's cool. I think the concept is neat. I've said it time and time again, but the idea of watching, of looking at standings, it's cool to me for some reason. I don't know why, but just having points and standings and people move, to me, there's something very cool about that versus like votes. Like even our own rankings. Like I know how much care that like I put into our rankings, that George, obviously, who's our rankings chair, puts into the rankings. I mean, I know that like we talk about it and we care about it, man. Like we try not to be like just haphazard, garbage rankings, But even still, I mean, there's still some human feeling and emotion in there, right? Like just straight up.
You have your favorites. You have things that stick in your head for a certain reason.
Yeah, for whatever reason. I was there. I remember this. You're going to have your bias.
The unconscious biases is what they are.
That's it, man.
You don't even realize how you maybe are. And it's the same thing. And you always point it out, too, when you have, like, say if you have money on a fight, you're always in your mind. You're always weighing it a certain way. And you're like, oh, no, he's definitely fighting better. He's definitely fighting better. And you're right. It's hard to not have personal involvement some way with these fighters in some manner.
It's hard. So, I mean, when you have standings that are based literally on nothing else other than wins and losses, it's cool. It's cool. I like it.
Yeah.
I will say, this championship card was not the most exciting event of all time. I mean, I'm happy for everybody that was on it. I will say Kayla Harrison definitely moves the needle for us, man. She really does move the needle for us. I can tell you as a website operator, people click on her, and she is a phenomenal athlete. I think she will at some point. I think maybe make it to the UFC. I don't know. I know she's not really, she's not a fan of weight cutting. She doesn't want to cut weight, and so for her to get
But she also, I think, realizes, too, that she's incredible in what she does, but she realized that her skill set is not fully there.
Right.
So she embraces it.
She's just rounding out her talents right now.
Yeah,
she's a specimen, dude.
She is working so hard at it that you just know with that work ethic and with that talent to be able to go back to that judo background and be able to do what she does. And Larissa Pacheco is a fucking tough person, and for her to be able to kind of put up what she did, because she had her in a couple points where she was going for these slick sort of submissions that if she didn't have a good grasp of how
really
to get
bad spots
to kind of control and pull her head out of some things, she could have been in a lot of problems. But like you said, I thought the fights were good. Could have been maybe a little more exciting, but still, when you think about the fact of that night that 6 people were walking away with $1 million checks,
I love it.
how can you not just be so excited and happy for them? I mean, typically in one UFC night, a lot of times they don't give out $1 million in purse. So the fact that there's 6 people walking away with that in one night, for all that hard work to get through the tournament like they did, I mean, it's just incredible. Or the season, if you will. But it was good. I mean, and I went 6-0. You went 6-0 for the night.
We did,
as well.
yeah, 6-0 as well. So
pretty good.
Well, by the way, since you mentioned it, I mean, technically, you are the full season champion for the MMA Junkie staff picks.
Yeah.
By the way, we'll just throw this out there. Cold Coffee for the MMA Junkie staff picks is technically, I mean, I would say that at least you have a share of the championship. So what happened was we brought in Simon Head and Nolan King.
Damn you, Simon Head.
I wouldn't say halfway through the year.
I guess I could say Damian Nolan because Nolan had a higher one too.
Yeah, both of them did. Yeah, and I was gonna say, so both those guys came in and did great, man. In fact, so what we had to do is we had to since they didn't do the full year, we had to do percentages.
Percentages, yeah.
And they actually ended number 1 too. So Simon
They crushed
Head
it. They
is
did a really good
technically
job.
our champion
Yeah,
for,
he had like a 67%.
which is great.
It's fucking sick.
But he did pick about 100 less fights than you did.
Maybe a little bit more than 100.
Was
less.
it more? Not that you paid attention.
I mean, who's counting? Who's counting?
It was 103, but not. Yeah, so I mean, there was a difference. So anyway, I guess internally you would kind of say there's an asterisk next to it, but at the same time, man, his percentage was really, really good. But yeah, so out of anybody that picked every fight this year that we picked, you see our staff picks go out on MMA Junkie. Cold Coffee was number 1. Dan Tom was actually behind you, 1 pick behind you.
Came down to this last weekend.
Yeah,
he had
I think he went 5-1.
He had the lead on me, I think, going into the weekend, or we were tied.
Oh, with Bellator and PFL?
With Bellator and PFL.
And you stuck it out.
But he had been fucking crushing, just like last year. I think I did the same thing last year, except I pulled it out a little bit before the end. But I pretty much had just resolved that I was like, Dan's got it. Well, outside of Simon, those guys have been crushing it, man.
Yeah,
Kudos to them. They fucking killed it. But Dan's always that full season. I was like, I got to catch up to Dan. Last year I was able to catch up and took it. And it just so happened that it happened on the last weekend of this year.
So Cold Coffee finished 1. Dan Tom was 1 pick behind, and I was actually 1 pick behind
you
that.
Did good.
So we were all right there.
You weren't so you didn't you were
I'm
in the
usually
top 10.
Yeah, I'm usually like 3rd, 4th around there. I've never gotten like number 1, number 2. I've always been like 3, 4, 5.
Yeah,
normally like 3, 4.
I need to talk to Matt because somewhere along the line my trophy went missing on my profile, and I was like, I'm not gonna bitch about it. But now I'm like, it better fucking come back now.
Gotta bitch about it. So there you go. Strong finish for Cold Coffee.
Yeah,
so
that was pretty good.
Hey, we actually know what we're talking about. I know we just sound like a bunch of
wish
knuckleheads sometimes.
I tell you, every once in a while, I'll put like the 8-person, like, and I probably shouldn't even say this. I'll put like an 8-person parlay for like $2.
It's not illegal. It's not illegal.
I know, but still, it's like, you really shouldn't. But every once in a while, I'm like, I think I'm okay at this. But I always fuck it up because I can't not do like the 8-person because I want to take $2 and make it to like $150, and I always fuck up by like a fight or two because that's the great thing about this sport is you could literally just fucking try to pick all the favorites, and it doesn't fucking work that way.
Nope.
Because if it worked that way, people would always make money because you have the people that always just pick favorites. Even if you do, say you pick like 4 or 5, 6 fights, you make nothing on it because it's just you already have the spread going in your favor. But it just makes it fun, I mean, one person I know I could ask that's got the bug, I'm sure, is our boy John Anik.
Oh.
That man likes his
Bro.
gambling.
He
likes.
He can't play UFC fights though. It is illegal for not illegal for him, but it is against company policy.
Company policy. As a UFC
There
employee.
is really nothing that says a journalist can't bet, but as you mentioned earlier, I do not like to have money on fights just because I cannot separate myself from my money. And when I talk about was that a bad decision, was that a this and that, it just screws me up. And I'm telling you, man, it doesn't matter how little the money is. I'm looking for the reason my guy won.
Yeah,
So.
And it's right. It does. You wear different colored glasses when you watch it, when you have something. But it's the same way if you have a fighter that you just love and adore. Like, I mean, I'll watch a Derek Lewis fight, and I'm like, I'll fucking score it for him. 10 ways. 10 ways. You
had him cruising to an easy decision over Volkov, right?
I was like,
I'm glad he got the knockout over Volkov, but he was taking home the decision anyway.
He clearly had it. It was definitely in the bag.
That's great.
So,
well, listen. So I guess what I want to say about PFL was this. So interesting, right? Because you had 2 repeat winners, which I know Lance Palmer, you've always been a fan of. You actually covered him in college, so again, you have a connection to him.
I'm a Buckeye homer on that guy.
But it's weird, right? Like, I mean, he beat the same guy 3 times this year. And, I mean, I'm happy for him that he repeated, man. I mean, $2 million in the bank. Plus
Gilpin's a fucking tough
Oh,
competitor.
dude, that's another dude.
Gilpin's
like Pacheco, right? They were both in just awful position after awful position.
And
it
just sucks that, you're fighting a guy that has seemed to have had your number. Lance, but you could tell Lance was wary of his submission as well as his striking. You watch Lance a lot of fights, and he just knows that he could dominate with his wrestling.
Bro, if there's $1 million on the line, I'm going for what I know I'm good at.
And I don't blame him. But you could tell that he understood that there's never been an easy fight with Alex in front of him before.
Right.
Like, they've all been tough fights. But I was happy for him. I mean, I would have been happy for Alex if he got the win as well. But anytime a Buckeye goes strong, I'm super happy.
I'm just interested to see for season 3 now, right? Like,
yeah.
Is that good? I mean, are these repeat winners? Like, I mean, okay, so the first season, right, you're like, man, the novelty, these guys are going to cash $1 million checks. And it was like, holy shit, these guys are going to cash $1 million checks. And they did. And then we go through season 2, and I wonder, having these repeat winners, is that a bad thing? I mean, like, because I honestly feel like Lance Palmer can Lance Palmer anybody he wants to. You know what I mean? Like, and it's not necessarily the most exciting, man. If you're talking about, like, hey, man, Rock'em Sock'em Robots and Fight of the Night, like, no, he's not going to be that. But is he going to show some incredibly technical wrestling and dominate? Like, yeah, he's probably going to do that. But I just wonder, is it more difficult to market now? You know what I mean?
Yeah. But we have seen him lose before. That's the thing about it. He's not one of these guys that's just literally beating everybody. I mean, he has 3 losses on his professional career. I mean, the guy can lose.
Guy's got an impressive
He just
record,
hasn't lost in quite some time. Last time he lost, 2017. I think, were we there? I know we were there for, I think, the Almeida loss, World Series of Fighting 26. I think we were there for that event, and that was.
We were. We actually, we both covered.
And I remember it was just like, oh fuck, I can't believe I saw him lose. So these guys, and I get what you're saying. I mean, but even like what's Natan? I mean, he's a fucking beast, but he was pushed to the end. I mean, he went to a decision. I mean, like, that's another guy that a lot of times just gets in there and just fucking manhandles his dudes. But I think, as the same thing, I think when Ronda, and people will probably hate on me because, when it comes to skill and the overall skill levels, of course, these guys have more tricks in their bag. But there was a point where nobody could handle what she was doing until they saw it enough, and then they brought what they needed to do to bring it.
Right.
And I think the same thing with a guy that's super tough like Lance in a certain way. His number can be found. People can do it. And it just takes a bad night for any of these fighters to lose.
Right.
You could be the greatest in that one skill, but if you're having an off night, it doesn't matter. You're going to lose. But luckily enough, they've just been able to bring it on the days that they need to. And I think that's what differentiates a superior, fighter over just a great fighter.
Yeah.
A dominant fighter over, a really good fighter, is that they're able to do it at those moments consistently. And who knows, another season. I mean, but if they keep going out there and doing it, it could be quite possible. But I would still be into it because it's another Buckeye going for another
million. Of course,
million.
yeah, you're going for your Buckeye. I guess the thing is this, like, okay, like the positive of the season are exactly what we said. Like, there is no politics, you know what I mean? You win, you get on, you love that, right? But in terms of always remembering that this is entertainment as well as sport,
right?
It takes a little bit of the creativity out of the matchmaker's hand. Like for instance, like Rory McDonald come to PFL. There's no guarantee that he's going to be in the finals next year. You know what I mean? Whereas, if in any other organization, you could just put Rory on the finals. Somehow, basically.
Remember when those UFC guys went to one championship? Everybody thought they were just going to go in there and starch those guys?
Yeah, man, and they had some trouble,
Only
so
one's done so well.
that's what I'm interested about is because I do feel like this is an important season for the PFL because, again, they've made some noise, and, man, some people have made some money, which is awesome, dude. There's no question about it. Kayla Harrison has gotten some valuable experience, and I think she is going to be a star in the sport.
And the women's first lightweight champion.
Very cool, man.
That's fucking cool.
Ray Cooper III, man, he's a great story, and he's fun to watch. I mean, like I said, Lance Palmer, Schulte for that it matters as well. Both banking $2 million checks. I mean, that's cool. I mean, there's
what do you think
cool
about
things.
Isaev?
Isaev?
How would you think? I expect him to do better.
I did too.
I was kind of like, I mean, it looked like, you could tell that he has a lot of potential.
Yep.
But I thought, and maybe that's just the toughness of Rochelle to take him that far.
It's hard to look good against Rochelle.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
I think
it's
so.
hard to look good against him.
Maybe that's the case.
I think it's like a guy, I mean, I don't want to make the comparison like Jake Shields, but I mean, I just think of guys like that where there's certain names where you're like, dude, you're just not going to look good against them. You may beat him, but you're not going to look good against them.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Jared Rochelle brings. So I guess I wasn't blown away, but at the same time I was like, that's a Jared Rochelle fight.
Yeah. Because I definitely think he is a guy that can have every possibility of being a good name, a good fighter, a well-known fighter in the heavyweight division. And he was coming in there with some hype, and he was coming in there with a little bit of expectations, I think. And I think a lot of people were just maybe like, I don't know. Just maybe it's just because it's a heavyweight, people want to see a lot of stuff. And I mean, eventually got the TKO, but I don't know.
As I said, it wasn't, and especially I think on the back of 2 5-round decisions as well. You know what I mean? I think
true.
I do think that always kind of factors in where you're like, dude, I'm sitting here for a while, man. I want to see something special.
Yeah, I want Rock'em Sock'em quick.
I do. So I don't know, man. Like I said, I don't want to bag on the PFL. I like the PFL. Like I said, I've been a supporter from day one, man. I love the concept. I'm just trying to figure out how do they break into the next level? How do they? I mean, again, I never try to compare organizations to the UFC. That's not fair. So I'm not saying that. But how do they get the interest up? And I don't know if the repeat champions help or hurt. And again, the big names, I don't know if that's necessarily a guarantee either because you don't know if they're going to be there at the end.
Yeah. I mean, they're on the fights are on ESPN too. I mean, that's
good.
It's not ESPN proper, but that's still great. It's still ESPN, the ESPN's set of networks.
It is good.
I mean,
it means something. It still means something.
It does mean something. And I mean, the time was maybe not the best time, but it was still pretty much prime time.
Right. It was.
So I don't know. I mean, I think they're doing the right things. Maybe it's a matter of a partnership with something. Finding some way to connect the brand with something bigger than themselves. But I mean, they're definitely doing the right thing by being on ESPN. And if people can't realize the fact of what they're doing, especially with paying these fighters, and they've tried to sort of harp on that. About paying these guys. These guys are going out there and getting life-changing money at the very end of it. The whole season they're building up to something. They're trying to create a story arc. And maybe if they find the way to kind of keep pushing those stories out, it's just tough with so many events and so many fights to keep track. It's not like watching a season of something on the TV where every time you watch it, that particular storyline is pushed forward.
Right.
There's gaps in the timeline here because you watch a fight, and then months go by, and then you see him again, and it's hard to pick up that storyline and keep pushing it forward. And I guess that's just the nature of the fight game. These guys can't fight every week. I mean, I'm sure some would probably want to fight, like a Jorge Masvidal would probably want to fight.
But in team sports, you're talking about the same player over and over, week in, week out. How did so and so do
saw him
today?
in training. They say he looked good, and now we're going to see him perform again. It's tough. I mean, the sport sort of has it against them in that sense, where these fighters don't have constant eyes on them, and that's where I think the social media aspect of these fighters is what sort of helps keep that. And maybe it's a matter of some of these fighters need to do a better job of maybe picking up the social media side to help. push the brand. I mean, certainly with a lot of these UFC fighters, I mean, there's no loss of weekends or nights where you could pull up your phone and find something that one of them says that kind of keeps the buzz going.
Absolutely.
So
That's how MMA Junkie survives.
right, that's true.
It'll be interesting to see. I think I'm going to have a close eye on PFL Season 3. I feel like I don't want to say make or break. I don't want to say make or break because
Well, we've never heard anything about money-wise outside
we
of this.
we don't know.
They know, they have the money for this coming season.
That's it.
And that's it.
That's it. And from everything I understand is that they're fully funded for Season 3.
Yeah.
But
That is
not
going to be
necessarily
make or
beyond
break.
that. And so I feel
break.
like this is kind of a make or break year for them.
Yeah,
So-
because if those numbers don't come out on ESPN's smart, but they need a lot of content. They have a lot of channels and they have a lot of hours to program. But they could certainly find some fucking college games somewhere to put on that'll get just as many numbers if the numbers aren't there. So it is. So Season 3, it'd be interesting to see what they're going to try to do. So
It's gonna be a big moment. I'm excited. All right. Well, listen, it's this interesting little stretch for us, right, where we don't really have big events coming up. Next week we'll be in town together, so we'll do something. But I mean, all there is really next week is a one championship event, and on top of that, it's a one championship event in Thailand, which means it's loaded to the gills with like Muay Thai fights and kickboxing fights, which makes sense, of course. I mean, they're playing to the market there, but so there's really not a ton to talk about. But I'll say this: we go from there right into UFC 246, man. We have this little slow stretch, but Cowboy versus Cowboy versus McGregor. That's how I had it written in my notes here. Conor versus Cowboy. It's definitely not Cowboy first. There's
not.
There's my bias.
Yeah, right.
And listening to my notes.
Well, one's an active fighter. One isn't an active fighter.
Did you see? I wanted to ask you though. And I don't watch a ton of college football, but I watched a little bit just because the holidays were on. Did you see any of the ads for the event on ESPN? Like, I mean, they had it on the big.
I don't think so.
The big football games. I mean, listen. It's 100%.
I really only watched one game so far in the Bowls.
And it didn't go so well for you?
It did not. It did for a minute. It was going good, and I was hyped, and then I wasn't hyped.
It's interesting. I mean, look, understandably,
kudos to
ESPN's
Clemson,
marketing
whatever.
is all around Conor McGregor.
And the SEC. Fuck them.
Wow. I mean,
whatever.
the lads keep
Great for
brewing,
you
getting the
guys.
feelings coming out. No, but it's all around Conor McGregor. It's all around Conor McGregor. But understandably so. This is the first pay-per-view that ESPN is going to get to carry with Conor on it.
Oh, that is true. So I'm sure they're fucking chomping at
They
the
actually.
bit. This is what we paid the money for.
It's kind of funny because the way they market. Of course, they were like, and I wish I'd paid more attention to it. But it's like the most outspoken, the most. It's like they're showing all these highlights, whatever, and it's cool. But then it says. Conor makes his debut on ESPN Plus, and I was like, "That's technically true because it is broadcast on ESPN Plus."
Yeah,
but you're gonna have to pay $60. Like it kind of, you know what I mean? Like it kind of
pay-per-view.
I'm not saying it was shady marketing.
Yeah,
but it did kind of be like, "Oh, what? Conor's fighting on ESPN Plus? Well, I guess I better sign up for ESPN
I better
Plus."
sign up for that.
Not realizing, oh, by the way, you also need to charge your $60 as well. And the price did go up, by the way. The price did go up on pay-per-views moving forward, up by $5. But I will say this: I saw a lot
of that money.
Well, I was gonna say I saw a lot of people saying, "Damn, Dana White, man, he's raising the prices." The UFC's not raising the prices. ESPN
is.
They're raising the prices. They I think they looked at the first year as kind of a let's get our foot in the door, let's roll it out. Because basically the way it was, they knocked it down $5, which basically meant you could get your ESPN Plus subscription for free, essentially. Now they're saying no, you're gonna have to pay extra. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out. Not that I'm trying to say everything the UFC does is perfect, but hey, if you're gonna blame somebody for something, just make sure you're blaming the right person. So
yeah, for sure.
Anyway, but I don't know. I like I said, it's 2 weeks out, which is kind of crazy, kind of cool. But I don't know, man. I kind of want to get your temperature, man. I mean, I think I don't feel like we've got the hype that normally leads into a Conor fight right now. I don't know if that's good or bad. I do believe that once fight week rolls around, it's not going to be a problem with interest. But it is a little weird, right? 2 weeks out from a Conor fight to not really
Yeah.
Maybe it's just the timing of like the end of year and the holidays and all
that could be it. I think.
But to be 2 weeks out and not feel like, which I'll say this, I'm actually kind of cool with not being like, oh my God, I don't want to write another thing about Conor right now.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, right? 2 weeks out to not feel like, we're inundated with Conor.
You're true. Yeah, and you raise actually a good point. Yeah, I think with the big emotion and energy dump of going through the holiday season, now it's like, okay, get back to work. And, granted, you were just on the road, but yeah, it's kind of a nice little slow roll, but into a crazy week. And I think once you get into that fight week, it should be pretty crazy. But who knows? I mean, like, I don't know if we're going to see the huge Irish travelers that come over, and maybe we will, maybe we won't. I mean, I think that always makes the fight weeks a little bit different too. But I don't know, and I don't want to jinx it. I just kind of feel like sometimes with these Conor fight weeks and with some of this other stuff, you almost just like wait for the shoe to drop, and something's going to call it off. Something's going to make it happen, And it's like, let's just get to fight week. I almost don't want to have so much build up. Let us just get to the fight week. Let us get there, know that it's happening. He does look fucking jacked though. Every picture I've seen, I'm like, dude looks fit.
So what do you think of this whole, like, every tweet now is like, good on you, buddy. Let's have a great 2020. Like, I mean, he's being like positive guy.
He needs
Conor
to do some serious positive PR. Everything that's been coming from the guy. One, he's had a hell of a lot of just sort of crazy nutso after fight tweets. You almost feel like somebody else took over the account. But there was a while there where you were getting these sort of like, blah blah blah. I'll fucking destroy both these guys. After it to now. I mean, I like it. I mean, I like anybody that goes in there. But Conor was, I think, also too. Maybe I'd have to go back and see at the beginning of his career was more respectful before he got to be huge name Conor, and then it sort of changed, and then you felt like it jumped into this role. I like it.
I always thought it changed. The RDA press conference, where he came out as the El Chapo. And I was like, oh, come on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure once it gets into the fight week, I'm sure during the pressers and stuff, we're going to get that quick wit again. We're going to get some nice little jabs at his opponent. And once they finally get together, he'll probably have the glasses and he'll do the little reach up and he pulls the glasses off and then he stares through his eyes, and he stares into his soul. I'm sure we'll get that stuff, but I mean, I don't mind it. I mean, and that's the thing. You don't need it. I don't need it from Conor to be excited for a Conor fight.
No,
some of these other ones. I mean, if he just makes it in there, I know that the fight's going to be fun to watch, and especially with Cowboy. So me personally, I don't need any of that shit to really get excited about the fight. I'll be excited because this is a fight that I think we've been talking about for years, ever since that one of the press conferences where Conor was sort of mouthing off and Cowboy's like a level or two up above him.
That was the same one as the who the fuck is that guy? It was the same one, but it was that a much smaller moment.
Yeah. There was just like you were like, oh, okay.
But yeah, you're right. Cowboys, sit your little ass down.
Yeah. So they were little things. So I mean, who knows? I mean, Conor he looks good. He looks the part. He looks the part of someone that's been hitting the fucking gym at least. When we saw him last, his hands didn't look as well as we've seen in the past. So I'm hoping that that's been corrected. And I mean, that'll be one thing that we can't really tell until it gets to fight week. So. We get to fight week and we see an open workout and we see how he really looks. I'll be really, really excited if I see the Conor of old with the super sharp, crisp hands, the really fucking devastating left hook. So it'd be interesting.
I'm anxious to see what the fight week schedule ends up being because, I mean, listen, the one thing out there, the bad thing out there, of course, is these sexual assault allegations, right? I mean, the New York Times reported. Like, it's one thing, and this is why I think a lot of people need to understand, like, it's one thing when it was a famous Irish sports star or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, we can't report on that. Like, you can't cite that as an actual source. But then you get the New York Times reports, and it's a big deal. I mean, that's a very trusted and valued outlet. And nobody's questioning their reporting.
To Trump, I'm sure Trump their shit.
Yeah, he might ask some questions with the lamestream media or whatever. But So, I mean, look, it's going to come up at some point. It's going to have to come up at some point. Somebody's going to have to ask him about it. So I'll be interested to see, like, what he does. I mean, I would hope this isn't, like, a Ronda Rousey, Amanda Nunes situation. Like, I could understand.
They don't make him available?
Yeah, I could understand them potentially not doing an open workout. I could understand that. Like, maybe Conor saying, like, I don't want anybody to see what I look like. I don't want anybody to know what I look like at 170.
I just want to come sign autographs or something.
Yeah. I could see that. And listen, I mean, the last pay-per-view, right? We didn't have open workouts the last pay-per-view, and the UFC is starting to think about alternatives because I do think that at one point in time, the open workouts were basically like they were almost an educational thing, right? It was still like when we were trying to get acceptance from people that this is a real sport. And I think the open workouts weren't necessarily just B-roll gathering opportunities or an opportunity to evaluate fighters. I think it was just a chance to show people that, like, hey, look, these are highly skilled athletes, highly trained professionals, you know?
It's martial arts.
It's martial arts. Yeah, these aren't just bar brawlers or whatever. So I think that was a big part of what the open workouts were at one point. But a lot less fighters are participating in the open workouts these days. You know what I mean? They are coming out and saying, hey, man, I mean, hell, let's be honest. Cowboy, I don't remember the last time Cowboy did an open workout. So if they do open workouts, he literally shows up every time an open workout and says, hey, man.
Probably since before his kid was born.
Yeah, he'll say, hey, man, the real show's going to be on Saturday night. Y'all don't want to see me just hitting pads. How about this? I'm going to come out there and I'm going to sign autographs. I'm going to take pictures with every single one of y'all. And honestly, the crowd likes that. But let's be honest.
What about that last UFC one? Was that New York or wherever where no fighter worked out?
Oh,
the only person that worked out, and I'm air quoting, was Nate went out and shadow boxed for like 30 seconds on the mat before he went and answered. Everybody did a fan Q&A.
I forgot about that.
Literally nobody worked out. And I remember just thinking, like, why are we here?
Yeah.
Like, it made sense because you guys were in the back scrumming. But outside of that, I was like, oh, my God, we're here for open workouts and not one fighter worked out.
I think that's what's going to happen, to be honest with you. So I will not be surprised at 246 Fight Week we don't have an open workout and we don't get to see Conor, which will be interesting to me. I mean, obviously I expect him to be in shape. I expect.
If the pictures go to show, he looks he looks hulked up and he looks good. But does that translate to cardio? Does it translate to quick hands? Does it translate to 5 rounds in a cage with a big dude?
And I'll tell you what it doesn't translate to me is, and man, when we talked about it when this fight was first announced, I really don't have a problem with it being at 170 pounds. Like I don't, but I do have a problem. And Dana's come out and told ESPN and told some other people, like, this is essentially a number one contender fight for Conor.
Yeah.
To me, man, I don't like that. Like, to jump in front of Justin Gaethje, listen, we still got to get Khabib and Tony Ferguson done, so let's not count our chickens, too soon before they hatch. But come on, man, to jump in front of Justin Gaethje, I get the dollars and cents. The dollars and cents, man. I get it, but I'm not digging that.
Yeah, I agree because when it comes to who deserves it, who has earned it, it's without a doubt, But it makes you wonder if it boils down to something like bargaining on Conor's effort, where Conor, if he doesn't want to fight, doesn't need to fight.
True.
But if he's like, all right, Dana, I want to come, I want a paycheck like I want, and I know you want to do this, but to do this for me to fight, I want something else as well. I want this to be guaranteed. If I win, I get the next shot.
I believe that.
And I could see where Dana's like, all right, whatever you want, Conor.
Okay.
I
believe it.
He knows it'll get numbers, but if that's what it takes to get Conor, because Conor knows that he can get the dollar value. That's not a big deal. But I think if that's enough to get him to get back into the cage and fight, in a fight in an MMA fight, it makes sense that he's calling the shots in that sense. And it's not it sucks because you want Justin and you want those guys to have it because they've been staying current and fighting. But it's also not a heavy lift for them to just be like, okay, these are my demands for me to get back in. I want you to meet my money demand. And people love me. And if I get in there and I beat a guy like Cerrone, who is at the top of the division, and beat him handily, I want you to promise me that I'm going to get that this is the contender shot.
Look, we said it when the brawl happened. We said it then. We were like, oh, dude.
Yeah.
If Khabib never wanted to fight this guy again, he shouldn't have jumped the cage because now he's going to have to fight the guy again. The money behind it, the rematch would just be insane. So I do get it from a business perspective, man. It just kind of, if I'm being honest, man, it just kind of sucks, man. Look, if for whatever reason, if Conor wins this fight and then we get Conor Khabib too, which, by the way, you still got to get Khabib to agree to that too.
Right.
But if for some reason we do get that fight, of course, The clicks will be amazing. The
Yeah.
traffic will be good for us. It'll be great. And on the night of the fight, of course, I'll be excited. But
Yep.
man, the guy that wishes things should work
Yep.
out the way it's supposed to work out, like Gaethje should have the winner
I agree.
of Khabib Ferguson.
I agree, but when I think, and this is no slight to Justin because it almost has nothing to do with him except for the fact that I know he's deserving. Outside of Tony fighting Khabib, who else do I want to see him fight the most next? And I love Justin Gage, and I think he's totally deserving. But I would rather watch Conor Khabib run it back than Khabib.
Okay, you know what?
And Justin.
You know what?
This is no slight to Justin.
No, but you know what? Here, it's funny. As you said that, here's what crossed my mind. Because Khabib has kind of toyed around with the idea of an early retirement, right?
Yeah.
So if Khabib says, listen, I beat Tony Ferguson. I've got
Who's the guy that everybody said is the toughest guy that's waiting for him?
I've got one fight left.
Yeah.
I'm done. I've got one fight left.
It would be Conor.
Everybody would want to see Conor, right?
It would be, without a doubt, people would say it has to be
that would
one.
put the most money in the bank for Khabib.
It'd be the one. I think if people look down, I mean, I think for all of us that know that if there were multiple fights, because especially when you put it that way.
If there were multiple fights,
we know this is the fight that needs to happen, of course, without a fucking doubt. But if it's like, if I had to pick the one fight, if I only could pick one fight, that's the fight I want to see. It's the same thing when people are like, if people, want to see a Conor fight, someone they said, who's the fight I want it to be? There's going to be a lot of people that want Diaz.
Right.
Because there's people that just love that whole build up for what the fight was, the emotions that were tied to it. But there's some killer emotions tied to the fact of Khabib and Conor. There's just real raw emotions there that it's hard to discount that. When you look at Justin and you look at
it's a real
Khabib,
rivalry, man.
It's a real rivalry. Like when you look at Justin, that you're like, this is what's good for the division.
Yeah.
But we know the UFC's done shit for years that is no fucking good for the division. If they were only cared about the division, they would have never let Conor go fight outside of the fucking MMA in the first place, and they let their champ just run off and do whatever. But in terms of if I was on my deathbed and I had to pick one fight for him to fight next, it would be that fight.
I'm not disagreeing. You know what, man? If the MMA gods have any justice, Cowboy will find a way to win this fight, and that opens up Justin Gaethje versus the winner of Khabib Ferguson.
Yeah.
And by the way, as a consolation, that means we get Conor Diaz 3.
Yeah. But and the
like
crazy,
that's not bad.
That's not bad at all.
That's not bad.
And the crazy thing is, like, yeah, I mean, because I guess the only variable would be like if we know that Khabib's going to be going away, if that's even a thing, then I can think of where a lot of people are like, we got to make this fight somehow come back to it. But if we know that there's time,
you're so right, dude.
if there's time, I think all of us would be like, oh, okay, it'll happen eventually. But Khabib,
here's the test.
But the thing about him is that he controls his destiny now, just like fucking Conor did.
So I was gonna say,
if
here's
he wants
the test.
to toy it and act like I'm gonna step away from the fight game for a year, I'm just gonna walk away, maybe a year or two. He can come back.
Oh yeah.
And they would make that fight.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, here's the test, right? So let's say Conor loses. And
which could happen.
Could happen. Khabib beats Tony Ferguson. Then Khabib says, "Listen, I got one fight left." This will be interesting because I honestly believe in my heart, like knowing Khabib the way we do, I do believe that Khabib is like, fuck that guy. I don't want to fight him ever again. Like, he doesn't even deserve my attention, right? But at the same time, that is a lot of money. Like, and I know he pours a lot of money back into Dagestan and but if you're like, bro, you know how many schools and training centers, and like, you know how much you can, like, I know, like, Khabib does not strike me as a guy that, like, is like, dude, I mean, you know how many Ferraris I could buy with this? Like, no, that's not him. But do you know how much good you could do with this money?
You know how many push-ups I can make a bunch of bums do with this kind of money? Imagine this, though, as another thing, because most people don't even seem to factor this in. Tony Ferguson, say he beats Khabib.
Oh, my God.
How quickly do you think Khabib will be like, all right, yeah, give me that fucking Conor rematch?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. At that point.
Where right now he's like,
true.
He's like, fuck it, whatever.
That's so true.
Keep calling, son. I'll get to you when I can.
Boy, that is so true. If he loses to Tony Ferguson, there really isn't another, like, extremely marketable matchup. Like, no disrespect to him.
No.
But his thing is the guy with the O that has the belt around his waist. As soon as you're the guy with the
especially
one,
unless they were like, all right, well, we got to give you an immediate rematch. We're going to give you an immediate rematch. But if they
Bro,
didn't,
there's no way you do an immediate rematch of a fight that took 5 times to get together. You can't
True.
do an immediate rematch. You can't.
10 more times and then we'll get it again.
No. You can't do an immediate rematch.
And that's the thing. I almost feel like people are almost already thinking so much about the next fight of after this win. Okay, yeah, it's got to be Conor. It's got to be this. Okay, or it's going to be Justin. It's going to fight Khabib. People don't realize Tony Ferguson is extremely dangerous
true,
and has every possibility. It's just so tough when you think about how lately Khabib's hands have been extremely good. Mm-hmm. His power, his preciseness, but just the fact of how impressive he is when he gets a hold. Like I felt so bad for Dustin Poirier not being able to do a damn thing.
Dude.
In there, and
Can't
just knowing how
good
Dustin is, just the way that he just get on top and he just wraps his legs up, and then you're just stuck. You can't get up, and then you're just eating punches, and just you could see the frustration. Yep. He just has a way of doing that to people that you're just like, oh my God. But fuck, if Tony could pull this out, then what else would you rather? I mean, Khabib after that, unless he's just like, fuck it, I'm over this fight game. I'll be back in a year. I'll fight Conor, and I'll be back in 2 years. I'll fight Conor.
Thanks for the cheese.
Thanks for the cheese. It's crazy. It's crazy
good.
to think, but I feel like everybody is overlooking Tony. But it's funny because when have we ever overlooked Tony Ferguson in any other fight? But everybody seems to be fucking overlooking him in this fight.
You know what, man? There's something kind of cool about Conor being the first pay-per-view of the year. Because normally, right, like everybody's sitting around going, well, I mean, we got this and this and this and this, but we got to wait and see what Conor does.
And it's
now we're going to know what Conor does.
The third week.
Yeah, man.
It's the third week of the year already, and typically by the UFC they'd already have 3 fights going on at that point.
So true.
That's a good way to get the month started for sure.
It's going to be good. It's going to be good. All right, listen, should mention, by the way, we have switched over to one of my absolute favorite Latchkey Brewing. Just the name itself. The name itself is phenomenal. Java the Hutt.
Java the Hutt.
It is a porter with coffee. It's a crisp.
What kind of coffee?
A crisp, dry porter featuring Mostra Brazilian coffee and Ecuadorian cocoa nibs.
And this can's cold, right?
Yeah.
So the drink's cold.
Yes.
So would you say that the coffee in it
is also cold?
Is also cold. I fully support the Java.
Well done, sir. And I am a little bit disappointed. It took me so long to figure out where you were going with that. It took me a little while.
These are not the dreads you're looking for.
So good.
It makes me think of some Mandalorian.
By the way, I will say, Have
you watched that yet?
I will throw out my new dorkiness. The Mandalorian is really cool, and I will say,
Baby Yoda for real.
Okay, Baby Yoda #1. But I will say, I watched every episode with my kid, and I loved it. But I will say, episodes 7 and 8 were just off the chain.
Incredible.
They were great.
So I will ask you this as well, because I actually had this discussion with our resident movie TV show guru, Matt Erickson. And people, if you don't know already, if you haven't watched the series, shame on you. Fucking get the Disney Plus and watch it, even though...
You're not going to spoil it, are you?
Shame on you, Disney. No. Shame on you, Disney, for fucking slow-rolling this shit out. But Gina Carano was fucking... The last episode was fantastic.
I thought she was fantastic.
I literally believe her character.
Yep.
I like it, and it's gotten better as the episodes go on.
Yep.
So, fucking A. Great job on her.
I thought Gina Carano did a fantastic job.
She was fucking movies.
She has, man. And she
she's
wasn't in every...
her stride.
If you haven't watched it, she's not in every episode.
No.
But the parts that she's in, I thought, to be honest with you, I thought she did a really great job. And by the way, I got so lucky because I missed episode 7 because I was traveling.
Okay.
So I got to watch episodes 7 and 8 back to back.
Yeah.
Thank God, because had I watched episode 7 and then had to wait a week to watch episode 8, I probably would have slapped somebody. But me and my kid were like, we looked at each other,
dude,
and we were like,
it's such a solid series. Like,
Yeah.
if you like the Star Wars shit, it's funny because Agent H, she don't like that shit. I mean, it's funny because she thinks I love sci-fi. She thinks every fucking sci-fi show I watch, she's like, is this like your Star Trek, Star Wars? And I'm like, oh, girl, we gotta fucking talk. Like, Star Wars and Star Trek are 2 fucking different worlds, but whatever. But like,
and you're not even talking about which generation of Star Trek.
I'm like, girl, we don't even make me talk about the different captains of Star Trek. I mean, It is legit. It is if you like the sci-fi shit, and let alone if you like the Star Wars world, it's fantastic.
I loved it.
I think all of us older like
I'm not a big Star Wars guy.
Star Wars
I'm not
fans,
a big
like,
Star Wars guy.
it's
Mandalorian's
exciting,
good.
and the fact that they've been able to transfer that into a series, into an episodic sort of format, is fantastic.
Yep.
I'm just like maybe we've been sort of just appeased with the whole Stranger Things on Netflix or whatever, where it's like we're giving these whole seasons in one big huge dump that you could just binge.
Right.
Fuck you, Disney, for not giving it, because I want that.
Oh, see,
because every
it's
episode,
cool. It's destination. Remember,
that's
what I said.
it makes me wait for it. But I mean,
that's how they did Westworld.
It is so
and that's
good,
how they
though.
did Westworld. It made me love that on HBO.
Westworld is good. That's another good one if you guys haven't seen that one. But I mean, I just wanted to bring that. I wanted to ask you. I thought Gina Carano did fantastic in this.
She really did.
But they do a great job of keeping it to her strengths.
Right.
They play off her being a tough fighter. It's not like it's the most dialogue, but she has fucking dialogue, and she does well. And
they're not hiding
it's believable.
her. I agree. They're not hiding her,
I like
but
it.
they're no. I thought Gina did a great job.
I love it, and I love the stories. But yeah, I feel like we've geeked out so much about it. But fuck, The Mandalorian is dope, dude. But I was gonna ask you about how I thought Gina, but yeah, even Erickson agreed with me, man. For people that maybe haven't watched Gina, and if you've forgotten who Gina is, she's a fucking star now. Yep. She's an actor. And she's doing a hell of a job. It's a perfect fucking role. I mean, she landed a really good one here. So
I agree.
Good for her.
I agree. Well, listen. Hope everybody enjoyed the new addition to the team, Cold Coffee. I thought you really brought it tonight.
Thanks for having me on the show. I hope to be back sometime.
Maybe in another 7 weeks or so. We'll see what's up.
Maybe both of us will be fully clear of the.
I was gonna say
of the colds.
I feel like we should wrap up at this point because both of us are like. Hopefully the coughs in the background and whatever haven't been too distracting. It's very clear that neither one of us is exactly 100%. I'm more on the. Like I'm basically done. I'm basically done. I think you're still in the middle of it.
Still in the middle, but I mean, it's like I don't have like the immediate headaches and the other stuff, but it's just the persistent cough and like congestion.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was just initial flu or just cold, but makes me feel like it was flu just for the fact that it's been I feel like this has been like 2 fucking weeks where it's just been nagging, and I'm like, come on, can you be gone already? I don't feel bad, but there's something about just that persistent coughing fits that I'm just like, can this just please be over already?
I'm 2 strong weeks into it and it's not bad anymore.
Yeah.
But it's still there in two strong weeks.
So maybe next week we'll be cough-free.
Hopefully by the UFC 246, we're actually back at 100%. By the way, UFC 246, man, we'll be strong. The young Mike Bond is coming to town.
Oh, yes.
Simon Head, the Duke, is making a trip over as well.
Is he coming for that one as well?
Yeah. So I mean,
he was just over here for the last one.
Yeah. Well, hey man, he's got those freelance
side
gigs.
hustles,
He's
man.
got that side hustle going.
Good shit.
He's just part timing for us. So
and that's good because the week after that is my mom's mom. Plug your ears. Is my mom's 70th birthday. We're gonna surprise her. I'm flying back to Nashville. She wouldn't normally make it to this point in the podcast. She usually stops after the beginning. So I'm looking forward to it. So this will be a fun month, man. So I'm looking forward to that big, huge UFC, and then just sort of getting the year started, man. I feel like
you get a vacation.
This was a nice little reprieve, if you call it is.
I mean, we always argue. We always say man, I wish we had an off season. I know this isn't a long off season, but kind of. I mean, look, the big pay per view was December 14th, right? Yeah, we covered December 21st, and I had to make a quick trip to Tokyo. But bottom line, as far as like the big intense stuff, like now we've got a little break from that Bellator event to now. I mean, we got a couple weeks, and it's
that week
nice.
of the January 18th, ending in January 18th, is going to be fucking madness.
Yep.
But it feels good right now. I like, and thank goodness, because I think there's probably one time a year I get sick. And I think it's probably because I haven't been drinking as much Jameson as I normally
the problem,
would do.
Man. If you keep enough, keep enough alcohol in your bloodstream, man,
nothing's gonna affect you.
It just sanitizes everything.
Kudos for next year. My New Year's resolution is to drink more whiskey. So I'm glad to get it out of our system right now, because if this was a typical like fight week back to back, this would be absolute bloody murder. So thank goodness we're gonna get this done and out of the fucking way. I will start drinking more. That is my New Year's resolution. I will start drinking more whiskey, and then
Latchkey Brewing and whiskey.
Latchkey Brewing and whiskey. I will be right as rain for the next time. Maybe not next week, but for fight week, I will be right as rain.
We'll be good to go. Looking forward to it. We'll get back together next week and see you get an update. Hopefully our health will be a little bit better and we're a little easier to listen to. Either way, thanks for listening.